What can the rearview mirror in your car teach you about moving forward in business and in life? Stay tuned and find out.
Welcome.
Okay, here's the question.
You serious?
How are we dark horses? You know, the ones everyone is betting against, the ones they don't expect to win, place, or even show on the track, and they'll even laugh on us when we talk about trying. How do we show the world our greatness and triumph?
Come on.
Well, that's the question, and this podcast will give you the answers.
Let's go.
This is The Dark Horse Entrepreneur. My name is Tracy Brinkman.
And push it up.
What is up? What is up, my dark horse friends and family? Welcome back to your ongoing dose of learning from the past. Learning. I'm not sure that sounds right. Anyway, I'm your dark horse host, Tracy Brinkman, and you, well, that, my friend, is infinitely more important. You are a driven entrepreneur, or one in the making. Either way, you're here because you're ready to start, restart, kickstart, and just start leveling up with some great marketing, personal, or business tips and results in order to build that beautiful business of yours into the empire it absolutely deserves to be. That's why I'm here hitting you with another solo success episode coming to you straight from the Dark Horse HQ as we dive deep into success with actual advice, tips, and steps to help you level up your game, your business game, your relationship game, your spiritual game, your personal development game. Because as we already know, there are no shortcuts to success except for taking those little steps towards your goal every single day. But before we kick off, I know you're getting value from this podcast, right? I feel you nodding your head. Even if you're not physically doing it, maybe you're mentally doing it. Anyway, if you are getting value, and I truly hope you are, please go on down there, hit that subscribe button, drop us a 5-star rating, leave us some kind words in the reviews. Heck, ask questions, leave comments, leave suggestions. I read every single one of the reviews. But here's the cool thing. It's those subscribes, ratings, and reviews are your way of telling those podcast platforms out there that you are getting value and that they should lift us up a little bit in the ratings so that we can reach more driven entrepreneurs just like you. So please take a moment and show the love. All right, so we're kind of taking off from what Billy Bat was sharing with us about your past does not have to define your future. And you haven't listened to the episode, which was episode 228 with Billy Bat. He shared his great story of coming up from gangs and working in the oil fields for, I believe it was 8 years, to creating a multi-million-dollar business, and even to the point where he's now the CRO for big companies right now. So clearly he wasn't letting his past define his future. And I remember in an ebook I wrote, God, so long ago, I used the analogy of the 3 views of the road. And maybe we're talking about, the road of life. And there are 3 views I want you to consider for the road of life. One is the rearview mirror, right? As we all know, you don't drive your car down the road of life by staring into the rearview mirror. So why would you live your life by staring into your past? The rearview mirror, or in this case, the rear view, will, however, allow you to keep those insights and gain those insights of what has happened to you in order that you can be more wise and, more simply, enjoy continuing down your road to success in business, success in your life. Now, when you say write your success story, right, you look in the rearview mirror and you go back to your story and then you move forward. You write forward. And here's the thing when it comes to looking in your rearview mirror, you don't always have to stare at all the bad shit that's happened to you, right? You could start with the things you've already done. What are the little successes that you've accomplished? What are the failures that you've survived? What did you learn from all of them? Again, how far back you go in this scenario is completely up to you. Now, I know when I did it, I went all the way back to, let's say, the 1st grade. I know it sounds like a long way, but there are significant memories that I feel were important enough to jot down when I went through this exercise way back when I first wrote this ebook, and I still do it to this day. Now, I don't write life story from every moment, but what you want to do is you want to write down all those significant memories that are burned into your mind's eye. And here's the cool thing. When you do this, you can go back to some fond memories that you really enjoyed. And for me, there would be things like, traveling across the country with my parents. It was something we did every single year. As you all know, my father was a military man for 23 years. But every year, we would take about a month, maybe 3 weeks or so. But then we would, if we were stationed in the States, and we would travel to either my grandparents' house in Southern California or my grandparents' house up in Minnesota. And we would drive. We wouldn't fly. We would drive across country. So I got to see so much of the world from the back seat of that 1973 AMC Matador. And I enjoyed all those adventures driving across the country with my parents. Now, you can also, you can focus on those not so fond memories and you can learn from them. If I stick with the early years of my life and the military link, we moved a lot, about every 2 or 3 years. And I can tell you, in the early days, it wasn't such a big deal. One of the skills it gave me was humor and the ability to connect with people rather quickly. But later on, I'll say my early teens, maybe just before my teens, when I think you start really building those long-term bonds, right? It hurts, right? It's a little different when you start having to leave folks. You begin to care at a different level. But that taught me that, you know what? People come into your life for a reason. They can bring you joy. They can bring you sadness, but there are things you can learn from it. I'm getting off on a completely different tangent than I planned on in this show, but there are 2 other views of the road. Obviously, I mentioned there are 3. There's the road ahead. Now, this part of the story brings you to where you are today, right? And most of you, this is probably going to be the easiest part of the story to write, right? It's the easiest part because it's the most recent. You have those fresh, those vivid memories, and you can pen them out with no problem. But herein lies the hard part. You can spend too much time focusing on where you are right now and get burnt out and not move forward. Now, many do this in their daily lives. Just like looking in the rearview mirror, I want you to acknowledge that rearview part of your story. I also want you to acknowledge where you are today. Write down the things that are shaping your story right now. Write down the things that are shaping your business today, both positive and negative. But don't get caught in that ditch of negativity as you write. Let me be clear. Do not ignore the negative, but do not simply focus on the negative. Write down the insights that you glean from this part of your story, right? Then you can start heading down the road that's in front of you, which is the next part called the signs to follow. So here in the signs to follow part, it's going to be very important to know where you want to go, right? Because if you're just kind of meandering through life, then you don't know what signs to look for. That sign could be right there, as big as the, Times Square building, right? The train, I can't think of the building now. As big as the Empire State Building, and you won't even pay attention to it. And here's the other thing. If you're driving north on Interstate 5 from Los Angeles and you want to go to San Diego, I've got some bad news for you. You're not going to get there. Well, you could, but you got to drive all the way around the world to do it. I think some folks out there, and I've done this myself, make the mistake of thinking, I'm doing something, I'm driving, so that means I'm going somewhere. No. You may be doing the actions and making things happen, but if you don't know where you're trying to go, right, then you're probably not going to get there. And if you do, it might just be by luck. So always make sure you know where you're going. Also, the benefit of that is when you see that sign that tells you maybe you should turn right or turn left or worse yet, in the case of driving north from LA and you're trying to get to San Diego, turn around, then perhaps you should do it. And you'll see it and you will do it, or you can do it. Otherwise, you won't even be paying attention to it. Now, here's another cool thing about paying attention to these signs and using the rear view mirror to learn from and learning from your current world and knowing where you're going is that some of these signs that you're going to see, they're going to warn you of danger, right? They're going to clue you in on opportunity, business opportunity, relationship opportunities, and they're also going to alert you to things that are coming up on the horizon. Now, you don't have to write down every single thing, focus on everything that you're going to need. But just the fact that you're focusing on your story is going to, A, help make it far more likely that you're going to see it when it happens. You're going to see it when it comes into view. And B, make you more alert to them before they even come into view. Right? It's like, oh, there's a sign coming. What is that sign? Oh, San Diego is this way, right? You know what I'm saying? So you'll start paying attention more, subconsciously, if not consciously. I'm reminded of a story, and actually it was made into a movie called Soul Surfer. And it was a movie about this young lady who was in competitive surfing. And she encountered a horrible accident where she literally lost her arm because of a shark attack, right? And she was early in her life. I want to say she was in her early teens, if I'm not mistaken. And she was determined to get back out there and become a competitive surfer. And through lots of hard work and lots of determination, and I believe there was also a prosthetic involved later on in her life. She actually got back up on that surfboard and made it back into the world of competitive surfing. There, my friends, is a young lady making sure that her past, right, her shark attack, losing her arm, this is an extreme example, but we can learn from these things, did not define her future. She had her future well set in mind, and she was going after it. And I think therein is a huge lesson for all of us, because it helps us remember that whatever setbacks you've suffered, and you've suffered them, I know you have, I have, you have, right? And it could be anything. It could be in your business. It could be in your relationship, in your spirituality, just life in general. Whatever pain that you've felt, or maybe that you've inflicted and now you're feeling guilt for, whatever obstacles you have tripped, you stumbled, you've bumbled, you've fallen, you faceplant, you do not want to let them define your present or define your future. You want to use that rearview mirror to learn from, right? You want to use where you're at today to learn from. I don't want you to forget about them. They are part of who you are. And then where you want to go, right? It's these little steps, right? We talk about the beginning of the show. So those little steps towards your goal every single day that will help you get around, jump through, bash through, dig under, walk around the things in your past and your present that you believe are holding you back. Because here's the big deal for me is your mistakes. Yeah, they do not define you. Okay, yeah, I've tried Facebook ads and I dumped $300 and I got nothing. Well, what'd you learn from it? You learned something. Well, you can learn something. How about that? You learned that maybe your ad copy sucked, or you were targeting the wrong audience. If you look at the data of your life, the data of the Facebook ad, whatever it is, the data of your business, you can learn from the mistake. You can learn from the choice that you made that didn't give you the results you expected. Remember, it's not failure, it's feedback. Because here's the cool thing. You can't always fix the choices you've made in the past. Maybe things are too broken, and it happens, right? Maybe you spent that money. It's gone. You gotta wait for new money to come in. But you can always make sure that you do not make the exact same mistake again. What do they say? The definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over and over again and expecting a different result. Yeah, you can't expect to rerun the exact same ad over again and get the same results. Or get different results, because you will get most likely the same results. Now, if something in the landscape has changed and now people are in need of whatever that ad specifically spoke to, it could change. But now it's because something else has changed, not you. My friend, I think another lesson to learn is what you've been through doesn't define you if you don't want it to. Now, a lot of people let it. Right? And that's why I say if you don't want it to. Some people want it to. I've known a number of people in my life, sometimes some of them far too closely, that they relished being able to lean back on their foibles, their pains of the past. And sometimes it almost seemed like they relished it. Don't be that person. If you grew up poor, and didn't know where your next meal was coming from, where you were going to be spending a night, that does not mean you're going to be poor all your life. You have the ability to come up with an idea, fill a gap, create a service, a product, right? Whatever it is, and market it, and people will pay you for that knowledge. You'd be surprised. Everything. I mean, I remember being a kid and selling paintings and selling drawing. And then later on, in my teenage years, I started painting cars and installing stereos for folks for money. I was like, and it was something I loved to do. I would have done it for free. They're like, no, let me pay you, right? They'd pull their car up. I'd spend the afternoon out in the amazing California sun, listening to music and playing with electronics in their car. And I would enjoy it. The time would just fly by, and then they would hand me cash. I'm like, what's up with this? This is awesome. So just because you grew up in a certain scenario doesn't mean that scenario has to define you and define the rest of your life. Now, I don't want you to forget about it, because it will help you empathize with the struggles of those that have gone through very similar scenarios, and you can help them out later on, right? You can understand their pains at a level that many will not. But let's be clear. I don't want you to get this twisted. Your past is important. Now, wait a minute, Tracy. What do you mean? Look, here's what I'm saying. Now, and I've said this in interviews before. The rearview mirror is probably the perfect example. When you're driving down the road, you have that rearview mirror, and you should be using that rearview mirror in probably the same amount of ratio when it comes to life. You're driving down the road, you're looking out the windshield, right? That is, let's say that's all 100%. And then the rearview mirror is that small percentage that allows you to look back and learn about the things you've just passed, or the things that are coming up from behind you, right? So your past is important. Your skills, your abilities, the talents you have, all the things you've done have shaped you to the point where you are right now, right? The choices you've made in your business, right? The way you've done the marketing, the types of clients that you have focused on have brought your business to the point that it is right now. And think about it. When you first started, maybe you sucked at marketing your business, but you had a few folks that needed your service that were already in your sphere of influence. So you just kind of shared with them. They're like, oh, well, I need that. Would you do that for me? You're like, yeah, sure. But over time, you either hired someone or you got better at the marketing of your products and services. So you see, your past is important, right? It helps bring you to where you are today. Don't forget about it, but don't dwell on it, and then start moving forward. Because you, my friend, do have free will, and you do have the power to change your life, your business. It all comes with things like, I don't know, how you treat people, what career you pursue, what niche you're focused on, the relationships you have, the relationships you form, how you treat those relationships, whether you avoid a vice or a temptation, or you succumb to it. And these are the things, right? And if you made mistakes in any of those areas, again, I remind you, you do have the power of change. I think so many people throw out the generalization that people don't change. Well, sometimes they do, right? I can remember back in my past running the streets, selling drugs, doing drugs. I changed. I changed a lot since then. I am not the person that was running those streets back then. I learned from that person. I gained some insights from that person. There are parts of that person that I kept that were great. How to, connect with people, and how to get people, how to find ways to build those relationships where they do what you want by you doing what they want, right? Like Zig says, right? If you can get if you can do enough things for other people, people will do things for you. It's not exactly how he says it, but you know what I mean. So there are pieces of that person that I brought with me from those dark times. There's pieces of the person that I had when my daughter passed away, and there's pieces of that person from my divorce that I brought with me because they're the good pieces. The rest of it is like the husk on the corn. I've peeled it away and I've discarded it. I don't need it anymore, because you can change. Your past does not have to define you. It can help mold you and make you better, but it does not have to define you or your business. All right, enough of me babbling about that. Okay, so in our next episode, we're going to be sharing some simple steps towards finding your tribe. And don't forget to check out the lives that we're doing over in the Dark Horse Tribe Facebook group. You can go to facebook.com and in that search bar type Dark Horse Tribe. That should take you right to the top. If for some reason you can't find us that way, you can go to darkhorseschooling.com/Dark Horse Tribe. That's all one word, and that will take you straight there. And Tuesday, we did a live on the success triad, which is learn, do, and teach. And then tomorrow, Thursday, we're going to be talking about signs that negative energy is a key factor to you as an entrepreneur. And it applies in other parts of life too. All right. There you have it, my Dark Horse friends and family. I'm going to leave you as I always do. Think successfully and take action.
Thank you for listening to the Dark Horse Entrepreneur Podcast.
You know this!
Thanks for tuning in.
Check us out at www.darkhorseschooling.com.
All right.
My name is Tracy Brinkman.